Good afternoon. Thank you guys for coming. Again, I'm Randall Carr, and glad you came. You're going to hear some stuff about your 401k plan today. Hopefully you can do that. Follow the party, a loud crowd, which is good. We are having this recorded, so it will be available for future use for anybody and everybody. This is Steve McComas from Empower. Give you a little bit of a background about why we're here, how we got here the last few months. Several things weren't going as we would have liked in our relationship with Transamerica. Merrill Lynch is our financial advisor of the 401k plan historically, and Transamerica was our record keeper, or record keeper and platform. So if you went on the Transamerica site, because of you participated in the past, basically, when we put the RFP out, we entertained proposals from a number of different organizations. Long story short, Empower won the business for a number of reasons. They won the business for several reasons. One, their platform itself, from an ease of use standpoint, kind of bells and whistles and tools, and some of you hopefully have been on the site already. I don't know anybody that's got better software from a user standpoint than Empower has. They also, from an overall design of the plan and some of the funds and things from a pure participant cost standpoint, all of us as participants in the 401k plan get a better deal, better value, if you will, through this new relationship. Raymond James, they're running the leader today. We have Raymond James, the local Raymond James group. Ryan Greer, Joe Thompson, the primary people there that serve as advisors to the plan. So those are the people, and we've got their information out there on Paylocity and several places. So that those are the people that if you really want to talk investment advice inside the plan, those are the people to really talk to. Steve McComas with Empower is here today to really talk about the new platform and help you to navigate through and understand the plan when you get onto the site. And it got some great tools, retirement planning tools, which is really what the 401k is all about, is helping you prepare for retirement. So he's here today to help really for you to see and navigate through it. Some of you may not have been on there at all. Some of you may have been on a little bit looking around. We want to make sure you feel comfortable with some of the tools. And again, even though he's here today and at other campuses later this week, he's available by phone, as is another person, John Hollers from Power as well. So we're going to have full support for you for the 401k plan. Crystal and I will be available for you as well. But a lot of it really, because there's a lot of intuitive things on the site, and just spending the time getting in there and waiting around a little bit. You're going to find it, for the most part, real intuitive and real simple. But glad to have Steve here today. I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk and do a presentation, and then have a chance for some Q&As.
Great. All right. Thanks very much, Randall. Well, good afternoon, everybody. As Randall said, my name is Steve McComas, and I am with Empower Retirement. Now, I'm a relationship manager for Empower, and I have plans all throughout the state of Tennessee. I've actually been with Empower for almost 29 years now, working on plans just like this. More recently, I've been working on the state of Tennessee plan, but now I've taken a complete move over to what we call our corporate side. So we're going to go through a lot of different stuff that Empower does. Randall mentioned our website. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I'm going to first start out with a small PowerPoint presentation to go through a couple different things, talk to you a little bit about the plan, some things to think about. But then I really do want to spend a lot of time on our website, and you're going to love, if you haven't played with it yet, I'll ask for a show of hands later, but if you haven't played with it, haven't gotten on there yet, I'm going to show you how easy it is, one, to register to get on there, and then two, a lot of the different things you can do on that website. So hopefully, you'll get a lot out of that. And then before we get done, certainly I will answer any questions as you might have. I would encourage you, if throughout this you have a question, feel free to answer. There's no dumb questions. I love questions, in fact, but we'll get through this, and hopefully you guys will have a better understanding of how Empower 401k works with us and how you can actually maintain and monitor your account. So really, as I mentioned, Empower is the service provider. They're the new service provider, as Randall mentioned as well. And one of the key points here that I like to point out is this bullet that says, we define success as helping people like you work toward replacing for life the income they made in retirement. Now, that's a tricky thing because most people, if you ask them, how much money do you need in retirement, they don't know that answer. So as you'll see on our website, we have a great tool and a great feature that will kind of help you see that goal and see how you are on that goal. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. And our responsibilities at Empower obviously are receiving your payroll contributions, tracking your account balances, providing ongoing communication and education, providing you quarterly statements, and then of course providing customer support. Now Randall mentioned that you have a whole team actually at Empower Retirement that is here to help you. I'm the kind of the relationship manager. I'm the boots on the ground in Tennessee. I work primarily more with Randall and Crystal and on the plan level type things, but we do have a client service line. You can always call me. I've got some cards up here. You can always call me and I can answer any questions or get you into the right person. But we do have a great client service line where you can get assistance all the way up until 9 o'clock Eastern time and on Saturday. So if your schedule is pretty busy like most of ours are and you're sitting around on a Saturday morning and you got a question on your 401k or you want to do something to your 401k and you'd rather talk to somebody on the phone, you can actually do that with one of our client service representatives. So really just to kind of go through this, we're going to go fairly quickly through this. And again, I want to show you a lot of screenshots and a little bit of a demo of our website. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. This first slide just talks about really what's going to make up our retirement. I mean, there's can be so many pieces that make up your retirement. You might have all these pieces of this pie. You might have just 2 of these pieces of this pie, meaning your 401k and Social Security when you're Social Security age. But as you work and as you go through your career, you might develop other forms of retirement savings. There's nothing wrong with that. One thing about retirement is not once have I had in the 28 years I've been here, never once has somebody told me, Steve, I've got too much money. It's always the other way around. I'm going to have to work until I die. I can never retire. But retirement is a plan, and you have to hit that plan. These are just a little illustration of what kind of things you have, that might make up your retirement picture. Now, this next slide, I'm going to go to the next part of it, but I just wanted to talk about really not a whole lot has changed under the plan from the previous record keeper to Empower. Did all of you, hopefully at your homes in the last month and a half or so, get some documents that look like this? Okay, good. Hopefully you read them. You probably are aware you went through a little blackout period as this transition, the assets transferred from one investment provider to Empower. That blackout period is now up and you're free to do really whatever you want to do. But we'll talk about that in great detail. Now, some of the benefits that I want to point out, and this is something that gets people confused, and that is your contribution. The contribution you make to this plan can be in one of 2 forms, pre-tax or after-tax Roth contributions. All right? So I'm going to go through a couple of illustrations here. This first thing, as you see, it looks like a little bit like a paycheck. This is a person that makes $2,500 a pay period. They're not contributing anything to a 401k, so their take-home pay after taxes is $2,125. That same person decides that they're now going to contribute 6% of their pay to the 401k plan on a pre-tax basis. So pre-tax basically means that here's your paycheck. They're going to take that 6% out of your paycheck before your paycheck is taxed. And that money is going to go into the 401k plan and be invested and grow tax deferred. Okay, so again, looking at this slide. So the bottom one here, you see where it says the person puts in, they still make $2,500 of pay. They put in 6% of their pay as a 401k contribution. Now their taxable income is not $2,500, it's now $2,350. So they've lowered their taxable income today. All right, that taxes on $2,350 is $352. So their take-home pay is $1,998. Now let's say that same person decided that they wanted to do it on a Roth basis. So this top slide is just like the one on the bottom of the previous page. This is showing us an individual who did a pre-tax contribution. Remember, the money comes out of your paycheck and then they tax your paycheck. But the contribution that went in has not yet been taxed. It's going to be invested and grow over time, tax deferred, meaning you'll pay tax on all of that money at some point in time. Now the next person says, okay, I would maybe think about doing my contribution as a Roth. So same thing, bottom line, bottom paycheck here, same person, make $2,500 a pay. This time, they're going to pay the tax right up front on all of their check. So that we're back to that $375 tax figure. Then they take the contribution out. So the contribution is made after tax in this scenario. So that contribution comes out of the paycheck after the entire paycheck has been taxed. So the contribution has been taxed already. You don't have to pay tax on that contribution again. But that contribution is going to go in and be invested and grow over time tax-free. Now listen carefully. I said tax-free. Anybody like to hear the term tax-free? Well, that's the way a Roth works. If you contribute to a Roth, the earnings that your money generates from here until whenever are going to be tax-free as long as you take them out after 59 and a half and you have them past age, or have them taken out after 59 and a half and you have the Roth for 5 years. Okay, so the IRS, there's a little stipulation on that, but it is a great way to save and build all of those earnings and all that accumulation and not have to pay tax on those earnings. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, so you can choose any way you want to do it. In fact, you could split it. You could say, I want to do half my contribution pre-tax, I want to do half my contribution Roth. Okay, you can change that, do that, whatever, anytime you would want to do that. But I always think this is important because it really depends on your situation. A lot of people ask me, well, Steve, what should I do? Should I do Roth or should I do pre-tax? Well, the younger you are, typically the better off the Roth is going to be for you. But there are situations in your life where you might be trying to lower your taxable income. You're not too concerned about taxes in the future. You're just trying to reduce your taxable income today. Then that would be a pre-tax way. These are questions that you can ask and get help with. Because everybody's answer is a little bit different. But typically, the younger you are, the more time you have in the market, the better off the Roth is going to be for you. Okay. So this little thing, the power of compounding, you probably have all heard that before. Compounding may help your contributions snowball over time. I do wish this slide that the snowball got bigger as it went down, but it doesn't. So. But what the whole point of this is making sure, one, that you're participating in the plan. Okay? There's now auto enrollment in this plan. Is there anybody in here that's not participating? Oh, good. That's very good to see. So what I mean by making sure you're participating, that you've got to start planning for retirement. You've got to start putting aside money, no matter how much it is, as early as you can, because it's going to take time. Anybody in here start late contributing to their 401k plan? Wish to admit it? She says yes. A lot of people do. Life happens sometimes and you start late. But you've got a little work to do, right? To try to catch up, and that's tough. So that's one of those things that if you try to start earlier, you're going to be that much better off. Here's an example of someone who started early. This is Chris. Chris has been saving for 40 years. He's been putting in $150 a month into his 401k, averaging an annual rate of return of 8%. So over that 40 years, Chris he's contributed $72,000. His account balance is $523,000. Now let's compare Chris to Jane. Jane's been saving for 25 years. Same amount as Chris was doing, $150 a month, averaging the same net annual return of 8%. Jane contributed over her 25 years, $45,000. Her account balance is $142,000. So just look at the time, what time can do there. 15 years more meant almost 5 times the benefit. Make sense? Questions on that? Okay. This next section just talks a little bit about, investing certain percentages. Every dollar counts towards retirement. This is a great little slide, and it shows you since 1997, a person that contributes 4% of their pay to a conservative profile or conservative diversification. In this case, they were contributing, I think it was $50 a month. Yes, so that contribution grew over that time to $114,000. Well, that same person did the same 4% and put it in more of a moderate portfolio, moderate risk, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That means they actually would have made a little bit more over that time frame. This next line talks about someone doing 4% in an aggressive portfolio. And then the next one talks about someone that did actually just 2% more. Okay, 2% more, look what a difference it made over that time frame. Now 2%, again, is hard to come by, early in your career or early in your working years. But you've got to try to increase your contributions and contribute as much as you can. Again, going back, I've never heard anybody say I've got too much money. It's always I don't have enough money. So I'm not, it doesn't matter to me what you contribute. I'm a salaried employee. I want you, though, to contribute and think about trying to move that needle for yourself. And we'll show you on some of the web demonstrations, we'll show you just how effective that can be in even more ways. All right. How many of you in here are savvy investors? Don't be shy. Okay, nobody raised their hand? Okay. That's usually the answer that I get. Most people are not savvy investors. The great thing about these plans anymore are there are ways that you can get help that are very, very easy. Again, we're going to talk in great detail on that. But when you think about investing, there's what are called asset classes. There's stock funds, there's bond funds, and then there's capital preservation funds, or what we call fixed type investment options. But what you want, and as the next couple slides will show you, you want what's called diversification. You want your money spread out through the market from high risk to low risk and everywhere in between. But again, remember how many of you are savvy investors? How do you pick? How do I know what percentage to put of my contributions in an international fund? How do I know what to put in a large company stock fund or mutual fund? Okay, that's one of the toughest things about this. And usually when you start talking about investments, when I'm sitting with somebody and you're actually going over individual investment options, their eyes start to glaze over and you just kind of lose focus, right? So there are things in this plan that help you do this. I'll show you how easy it can be. But the point being of diversification, you'll see here. This first line, that line, it represents inflation. $1 invested back in 1987, right now that's worth $3.24. Okay. Next line, the gold line here, represents somebody that put their money in a capital preservation fund. So they just said, look, I don't want to worry about the stock market. I don't want to worry about risk or losing any value or any of that. I'm going to put all my money in that fixed fund. Well, that's good. You're saving. But typically in a fixed fund, you're not even keeping up with inflation. And as you can see here, this gold line beat inflation for a little while, but over the last few years, it has not even kept up with inflation. Next line talks about someone who put all their money in bond funds. So same thing, $1 invested back in 1987, you had it invested in a typical bond fund, $1 would be worth $6.32 now. Wow, look at this. This is a person that put all their funds in a large company mutual fund or large company stock fund. Okay, see the difference there? How the market has changed that? This person had money in small caps. This person had money in international. The point of the whole slide is they don't all perform at the same way. So when you see where it says the inflation fund, or inflation where it says capital preservation, where it says bonds, large stocks, small stocks, international, they never work at the same speed. Okay, so by having a diversified portfolio, that's going to help you over the long term. All right? But by having, again, well, I'm scared of this. I have a family member, and they told me they lost their entire 401k down in 2008, or back in 2008. Well, that's probably not true, because that's not usually the way it works, but they may have lost a lot of value. But if that person had said, look, forget it, I'm putting all my money in the fixed account or the capital preservation fund, they're hardly even keeping up with inflation. So the goal here is to help you, and we'll go through this even more, understand the benefits of having a well-diversified account. And as I mentioned, there's ways to do this under the plan, and I'll point those out as we go through the web demo. So when we think about risk, because the stock market can be risky, right? Who was in the stock market in 2008? Okay. Did you lose a little value in your 401k? I did. I lost about 40% of the value in my 401k. Now in 2009, the market shot right back up, and I gained almost that exact amount back. Now I said value. I didn't say I lost any money. Anybody know why I didn't lose any money in 2008? Because I didn't sell it. Right. So what that means is, and just a little quick illustration is, I could go out and I could buy stock in Walmart. Well, let's say Walmart shares are selling for $50 a share. Okay, I'm buying stock and I'm buying ownership of Walmart. Now I'm a very small owner if I've got $50 shares at, let's say, $1,000 worth. But still, I own Walmart shares. If 3 months from the day I bought those shares at $50 a piece, if they go up to $51, I've got a gain. Or if it goes down to $49, I would have presumably a loss. Now, I don't have the gain or I don't have the loss until I sell the shares for 49 or I sell the shares for 51. All right? So what do you think happened? And I was pretty heavily in the business at this time. In 2008, every quarter, people were getting a big negative on their statements. I was the same way. So the first quarter came, wow, that's tough. I lost a lot of value. Hate to see that. Second quarter, same thing. Third quarter, same thing. Fourth quarter, same thing. Well, at some point during the year, not everybody, but a lot of people got to a point where they said, you know what, forget this. This is crazy. You know what, take all my money in Power, all my shares, sell those right now, and put them into that fixed account where I'm not going to lose any more value. Some of you in here might have done it. But when you sold them, when did you make the decision to sell them? When they were up here at the beginning of 2008? Or when they were somewhere down near the low point of 2008? Probably somewhere down the low point when you finally got fed up with it. Well, that means you probably sold the shares, in most cases, for less than what you paid for them. Okay, so that's mistake number one. But where's mistake number two? Let's look at that gold line again, or the brownish line. Where do you think the people that called up and said, Empower, sell all those shares, put my money in the fixed account where I'm not going to lose any more value? Where do you think they were in 2009 when the market rocketed back up? They were sitting in the fixed account. So when the market did recuperate and it did shoot back up and the share values bounced back up, they weren't in that. They didn't own the shares to recuperate it or to enjoy that growth back. Okay? So I know that's probably a lot to understand and figure out, but if you just understand the principle behind what you might be doing when you make maybe not a rash decision, but when you make a decision to get out of the market. Okay? 401k plans are not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's more of a slow and steady wins the race because you're trickling money in as you get paid, and over the 30, 40-year career you might have, that money is going to grow and provide you, hopefully, that income for life that I was talking about in the earlier slides. So any questions on that? I'm going to kind of skip through some of these real quick. Let's talk about investment options. How many of you have actually gone on the website and played around? Anybody? Okay. Have you gotten to a point where you've seen the investment options that are available to you, or I know you saw in the mailing where your funds were mapping, etc. But if you've gone onto the website and you've seen all this array of investment options, there's a bunch of them. And then you're looking at those, and again, your eyes might glaze over, and you're going, what am I doing? Well, those investment options are there to help you build a diversified portfolio, like we've talked about on that last slide. But a lot of people don't understand how to build that. And again, that's okay. If you're a person that's a pretty savvy investor and you're into that and that's what you do when you leave here at night, that's fantastic. You can build and create your own diversified portfolio. You can make adjustments to it. But most people aren't there. Most people don't want to do that. You're working hard all day here. Last thing you want to do is go home and pretty much study mutual funds. Okay, so we'll talk about how to get into what are called these risk-based models. Now, risk-based models, as you see here, they're made up of multiple asset classes. They're professionally managed. They offer diversified investments in a single option. Okay, the risk can range from low to high, and we'll show you that. And then return potential against ranges also from low to high. So what they're doing is they're models that are built with risk in mind. Are you conservative? Okay, here's a pre-made packaged list of a bevy of mutual funds. Oh, you're let's say moderately aggressive. Okay, here's a pre-made package of mutual funds geared towards moderately aggressive. And again, we will talk about that more. Okay. There's also what's called an advisory services feature on the plan. That's a little bit different. That's where you can actually you can call Empower. You can speak to an advisory service team member, and they're going to ask you a bunch of different questions. Based on the way you answer those questions, they're going to help determine, similar to the model fund, but they're going to help determine a diversified portfolio for you, more specific towards you as an individual, and based on your salary, based on a lot of different things. That feature is a good feature, but there's a little bit of an extra cost to that. I'll show you both of these on the website. Okay, so those of you, how many of you in this room have a smartphone like this? Probably most of us. How many of you have accessed your Empower account on your smartphone? Randall has. Anybody else? How many of you have accessed your account on your laptop? Anybody on an iPad or a tablet? A couple of you? Good. Okay. Here's one of the really cool things. We've worked very hard over the last couple of years to enhance our website as well as our web design. We have a lot of companies, similar to South College, companies of all sizes, all shapes, etc. One of the companies we record keep the 401k for and educate the 401k for, just like South College, is Apple Computers. When we got Apple's 401k, believe me, there was a lot of talk going around our home office going, how are we going to impress Apple with our website? So instead of trying to really impress them, we actually went to them for help. We worked with them to figure out what can we do to make our website better for your people and for the rest of the clientele we have. So what they've done, one of the cool things is, no matter what device you sign in from, it formats itself knowing what you're signing in from. So here's an example. I can click on my Empower app on my phone. It looks like that, if you can see that in the back of the room. It looks a little bit different than that screen, right? If I signed in on a tablet, it would format itself a little bit differently than both these screens because it knows what you're signing in on. So when you go in on your cell phone, you sign into your account, you're able to scroll left or right, up or down, and you're not having to do that fun thing we all do and stretching the pages and scrimping things up. Anybody do that? I've done it a lot on web pages, okay? So it's intuitive that it knows what you're looking at it from. Okay, and I'm going to go through a little bit of web demo. But really, the mobile-friendly website is really, really friendly. It's easy, it's simple to use, and as I said, I'm going to go through a demo in a minute. You can change your contribution amounts on there. You can actually, of course, you're all enrolled, but you can even enroll on there. And now I keep saying Apple. Now, some of you probably don't have an Apple product. Some of you might use an Android or something, right? Right now, we don't have yet completed the Android app, but they're soon to be released on that. But just go to your web browser, pull up empowermyretirement.com. You're getting to the same place. Okay. So any questions on really how to get to it on your phone? So you can download, if you have an Apple, right now you can download it from the Apple App Store. It's Empower Retirement. You can download the app and register or use your account online on your phone. All right. I'm going to flip screens here. Bear with me. I'm going to do a little demo. So here's the screen. So first what I want to do is I've never gone on there before. So first I'm going to register. So I'm going to click the little green register button, and now it automatically defaults to I do not have a PIN, which is what you want. And then you put in your social security number, you put in your zip code, you put in your last name, you put in your date of birth, and then you put in the numerical numbers of your street address. Once you've entered that information, you hit continue, and hopefully 99% of the time you're going to get this: we found you. The 1% of the times or 0.1% of the times they don't find you means somehow in the data that we have there's a little bit of a misstep. Okay, so if we can't find you, that's easy. Call the client service line; they'll get it straightened out. But typically you're going to get a "we found you." They say, "Great, I want you to put in your personal email address. I want you to put in a cell phone number, and then we want you to create a username and password." Click on register. Did I click it? Yeah, it's working. I'm on a Verizon Air card, so maybe that's my delay. It's usually much quicker. So now what this does, it automatically will show you what your contributions are already set up in our system, so you can leave it at that. Unless you want to change it, and then you can go here and do that, but I wouldn't do that on necessarily. You can do it on this screen, but you don't have to. And just say I agree, and you're done. You've registered. Okay, now I'm going to try to go back. Bear with me. So I've registered already. Now I have yet another PIN number to remember, right? Who's got a million PIN numbers they have to remember, or not PIN numbers, but user IDs and passwords. So this time I'm just going to go sign in. So when you first sign in, it's going to want to send you a code. Okay, so you say, all right, I want you to text that to me. Let's text it to this number. Send me the code. I'm going to get an email within just a few seconds with a code on it. I'm going to enter that code in here and hit sign in. Bear with me. All right, that should be here in a second. There we go. Okay, so now this is my home screen. So you see the first time or a couple times you log in, it's going to ask you if you want to take a guided tour through the retirement experience. I'm not going to do that here because I'm going to walk you through it. But tell me, on this home screen here, what's kind of the first thing that grabs your attention? Anybody? Is it that 66%? That's what it is for me. So what that is that's called your lifetime income score. So this is telling you how on track you are to replacing the income you make today, or a percentage of it. I'll show you that in a second. But to replacing your income in retirement. So here's an example. This person, I'm going to click on this 66%, and we probably have this in our system already, but you can update your salary. Your birth date you can't change. We already have that in the system. But you can change, okay, how much money am I going to need in retirement? Am I going to need to replace all of my income in retirement? 80%, 90%, 75%? Well, let's look at this one. We're going to leave this gentleman at 75%. So meaning when he retires, he's 66% on the way to his goal of replacing 75% of his income. Okay, is anybody, we know what 66% is? It's not really passing, is it? D? Okay, so what you have to do is, how do I change that? So again, I can change it very simply. I can go down here, click on edit, and again, this is all on your first page. So it looks the same on your phone. It's very similar as it does here. And I can say, okay, well, I've got a 66%, and I'm doing 4% of my pay. And again, this is just a demo, the illustration. But let's say, what happens if I go up to 6% of my pay? Well, that changed my score a little bit, right? I'm even better. Well, where do I have to be in order to make that 100%? Well, I got to be around 14% of my pay. Now, 14%, you're all thinking, I can't afford to do 14% of my pay. That's okay. You can't do it right now. But remember, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It takes some planning. But the great thing about this is that you can see right away, as you slide this slider, you can see, one, how your lifetime income score is changing. But more importantly, you see that red line there? That's what's called the income gap. So at 6%, Taylor Smith here has an income gap at retirement of $884. If Taylor raises it to 8%, his income at retirement would be $705 gap. So the goal is just to close that gap. Here's why this tool is so effective, and we've done all kinds of case studies of what this means to people mentally. What do you think most providers have, or most plans like this have, when you sign into your account? Most of them have the balance. They show your total balance. Okay, would anyone agree with me that $25,000 is a whole lot of money? $25,000 is a lot of money, right? But what happen is they look at that and they kind of get lulled in. Well, let's say this was $100,000. $100,000 is a whole lot of money. But the question is how much is $25,000 or how much is $100,000 going to provide you in a monthly income throughout your retirement? Is it going to provide you a lot? Is it going to provide you 20, 25 years of what you make today, or 75% of what you make today? It's not going to do it. So by doing the lifetime income score and by making it easy to adjust things and to see those adjustments and how they can almost take effect instantaneously, that is going to help you in the long run, rather than just seeing a big dollar amount and getting lulled into the fact that I have a lot of money in my 401k. Because it is a lot of money, but it's not going to provide you a long lifetime of income. Okay? All right. So let's talk about a couple things. Some of you have been into the website. Some of you have played around a little bit. But let's say, for example, when I was talking about those model funds, you know, some of you, depending on where you were at the old provider, maybe you're one of those ones that only has 1 or 2 or 3 funds, and you're not real well diversified because you didn't know really how to do it. Well, those model portfolios that I talked about, remember I said they're risk-based, so they're conservative, moderately moderate, moderately aggressive, and aggressive. It's very simple to change your account to those model portfolios. You simply go down here, click on Help Me Do It. No, it's not going to work. Then I'm going to click on Get Started. Hopefully. The demo could be faster. Well, it's thinking. Does Verizon not have good signal in here? There we go. Okay. So I'm under the Help Me Do It. And you see down here where it says choose risk-based fund or based on model portfolio. So I'm going to go based on model portfolio. And I'm picking, again, this is a demo, but you're going to have a bevy of those, the 5 of those different model portfolios in here. So it'll tell you which, you know, if you decide you want to be more conservative or more aggressive, you can pick that. You hit continue. Actually, I didn't pick one, but maybe. Hit continue. And confirm. This is just showing me taking my money from where I had it into this model. And I confirmed it. So you got a confirmation, you're good. So it's very, very simple to do that. Now, if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I like the idea of those model portfolios, but I think I want to kind of do this myself. That's, you know, something you're certainly able to do. I'm going to try to get back to the screen where I can show you that. All right, while this is thinking about that, any questions, any thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
When you just clicked on the Help Me, is that the program that costs $25 annually?
No, that's what's called managed account. So that is another option there. In that one, what I would do, because what she's referring to, remember I said there's the model portfolios, which are conservative, moderately aggressive, or moderately conservative, moderate, etc. Or there's the managed accounts, which has an annual charge, or that's to do that. So you can do either one of those. The model portfolios are built for you. They're very similar, but it's more specific towards a risk rather than you. Where the managed accounts, they're looking at you as an individual and the way you answer questions, okay, about your financial, you know, kind of your whole financial picture. Well, I seem to be stuck here. Let's see if I can. Any other questions while I'm trying to get this to work out? Yes, ma'am. There's not. Well, let me clarify that. So every mutual fund has what's called an asset management charge. So the model portfolio is a list of a bevy of mutual funds, and each of those mutual funds would have an asset charge, but they're not expensive. They're less than $1 annually. But you can't get a mutual fund that doesn't have an asset management fee? All right, fair. Let's see if I can get back to the original screen to show you this. So other questions, other thoughts? Yes, sir.
How often can you change your selections?
As often as you like. Now, you really can't do it daily because it's got to do the same depending on when you do it, but yeah, pretty much as often as you would like. So whenever you make a change, remember it's based on the stock market. So if I call in today and it's before 4 o'clock Eastern time and I say move my money from this investment option to that investment option, or I do it online before 4 o'clock Eastern time, they're going to move those assets at the close of business. In other words, they'll sell at the close of business that day and then purchase the new shares.
Charge each time you move?
No. There's no charge for transactions, etc. to make changes like that. Okay, here's what I wanted to point out. So again, I kind of talked to you about the first kind of the home screen, and a lot can be done on this screen. For most people, this is where they end up. The only thing they do, they get on here. They might increase their contributions. They might change their investments to one of the model portfolios, or what you could do if you wanted to kind of dig a little deeper in this is you just click on the plan here, which is going to be yours is going to look just like this. Again, I apologize for the speed here. It's usually much faster zipping through. But here's where I can do a whole lot of different things. You see this section on the left-hand side there? So I can go through and I can do a lot of things. If I want to see who my beneficiary is, I can see who my beneficiary is. If I want to change or add my beneficiary, I can change or add my beneficiary. That's one thing that I always stress to people, is to make sure your beneficiary is up to date. Not just on your 401k, but every other kind of policy you have, a life insurance policy, etc. I've been doing this a long time. On at least 2 occasions, I've had to have a conversation with somebody that was no longer the beneficiary, that was no longer intended to be the beneficiary, to a person that should have been the beneficiary. In fact, the last one was a person up here in Knoxville. He died suddenly, but he had divorced, remarried, never changed his beneficiary. So guess who got his 401k balance? His first wife. Yes.
I was on there Saturday,
Right.
and did I read correctly that in order to name any percent to a different beneficiary other than your spouse, you have to have it notarized?
Correct. So what you're referring to, just to kind of repeat that. So when you're a beneficiary under the 401k or under a 401k, if you are married, you have to choose your spouse at 100%. If you do not wish to choose your spouse at either as a whole percentage or a whole 100% or not at all, then they have to sign shoot, my name escaped me now. Randall, is that?
Contribution,
It's
distribution application.
no, I know the name is escaping me right now. But it's a form that they have to sign off on, where they can. I mean, in other words, I do presentations like this a lot, so I get people that say, well, I'm married, but I haven't seen my spouse in years. Or I also get people that say, that's fantastic. I don't want to, we're married, life is great, but I'd rather list the kids now and not have anything go to him. You can do that. They just have to sign off on it. It's called spousal consent. It's a spousal consent form. You can just fax it in. Good question. Yes?
But if you're not married, you don't have to do it.
No. If you're not married, you can choose whoever you like. Yeah. But if you are married and you don't want to choose your spouse, you have to fill out have them complete a spousal consent form and sign it in front of a notary. Yes, good. Thanks for bringing that up. Other questions? Other thoughts? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes. So good point. So when you're doing your beneficiaries and you do it online, you can't do that over the phone. Most everything you can do over the phone, but you can't change your beneficiary on the phone. It's got to be online or on a form. But her question was, can you do secondary beneficiaries? So yes, when you go through this process or even on the form, you have what's called a primary beneficiary and you have a contingent beneficiary. I'm married, for example, and I have 2 children. So my wife is my primary beneficiary, and then my contingent beneficiaries are my 2 children. So if I died and maybe perhaps we died together, my wife and I, it would then go to the children. Or if she died, predeceased me, and I never changed it, they're at the backups. So yes.
If you want your beneficiary to be a trust for your children that's set up through your will,
Right.
what do you do?
Good point. Okay, the question was if you want to name a trust as your beneficiary, how do you do that? You can do that, but to do that, you have to do it on a form, and you'll have to provide us with the first page of the trust. So it tells you. So yeah, you can name a trust. You can name a charity. If you want to do that. Good questions. Other questions? Okay. So just know, and I know we're running a little bit late on time here, but just know if you are one of those people that wants to kind of play in this and really dig deep, you can do it. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things here. You can change your contribution here. You can, like I said, change your beneficiary. One of the other things, and let me get back to there. If I can, hang on a second. Too slow. All right, while we're waiting, any more questions? Yes.
How did you determine what funds?
So what the question was, how do we determine when you moved from your other provider over to Empower? How was it determined which funds to choose? Did you have any? That was Ryan and his team, right?
Basically map like funds to like funds. So Transamerica, you had certain investment funds, right? Every fund is its own. There's different providers of those funds, and as Steve mentioned, there are different costs always within those funds. So if you had a large cap index fund, let's say, that was the class under Transamerica, we mapped, and let's say you had 50% of your money in that large cap index fund, we moved that to the large cap index fund at Transamerica. There's different fund names, but the classes are basically the same. There are 16 funds. Maybe we can show you that here in a little bit before you do the research on these funds. We basically tried to mirror your investments from Transamerica, because they're not exact fund matches, right? But they're fund classes, so those went over to Transamerica in the closest match we can get. That's one reason we want you to go in and look at these investments, understand the fees with each of the investments, look and see what portion of your money. I will say this, most people in our plan, we have several hundred people in the plan, both current employees and already retired or ex-employees, got money in the plan. Most people mapped over in what you used to have in Transamerica was a target date fund, which was a complete mix, if you will, of funds at certain percentages to make up a target-based fund. Most people kept their hands off and surprised. That mapped over into a moderate investment strategy across all 16 funds. So you would go in and look, if you haven't gone in yet, and you would see some of your money in each of the 16 funds, spread over what we consider to be a moderate investment strategy. So you need to think about rebalancing or looking at and see if it is still consistent with your investment options. You may not want to touch it, or you may want to do some of the things that Steve already said, or look into the individual funds and balance them individually, do it yourself. There's a way that you can do it very simply. You can research each of the funds, look to see what the fees of those funds are, what is past return over the last month, the last year, the last 5 years. You've got some great research tools to look at each fund and rebalance as you wish. And as he said, pretty much as often as you would wish as well.
Here's an example of that. So remember I said if you're a person that wants to do that, remember you could go do it easy and go to one of the model portfolios, or if you want to go in and study these, I think you should do that probably once a year. Just kind of look at things. Look at that. The funds change periodically. You would get notified if they changed at all. But let me just show you a couple different things. Actually, that's going to go into investment. So as Randall mentioned, there's all kinds of stuff out here. And one of the things you can look at out here is you're going to see what's called an investment options at a glance. I'll show you that in a second. But this first screen here, these are all the available. This is a demo, but all the available funds would be listed here. So you can actually look and see kind of an investment overview, which is kind of a 2 or 3 page snapshot of a prospectus, or you could actually view the actual prospectus. Okay, the prospectus is from the fund company. That if you've ever read a prospectus, if you've ever had difficulty sleeping, get a prospectus because they'll put you right to sleep. So, but there's a lot of information out there. But as Randall talked about, that's interesting as well. But really, what you want is performance tab. Yeah. So this performance sheet is it's created or updated every month. Okay, so what it's going to show us is you'll see it pop up here, and it'll be real small. You won't be able to see too much of it. But it lists out all the available investment options under the plan, and it will show you how. Well, let me move. But this is showing you how the performance has been, and it shows that there's a 10-year average or since inception, 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, year to date. So you can kind of see how has that fund performed. Now, when you're picking and choosing investment options, this is a good point to mention this. Should I really be concerned about what the fund did last month or even this year, the last 3 years? When do I really want to look at how a fund has performed? Typically 5 and 10 years. Okay? You got a bigger picture as to how that fund has performed on average all of that time frame. So yeah, so good question on that. And Randall mentioned the question that came back here is about are there fees for the mutual funds? Remember I talked about the expense ratio? That would be listed here on all the funds. All right?
So Don, the investment committee meets on a quarterly basis and reviews all the funds and will occasionally make decisions to replace funds that are performing well. In those meetings, we also have the ability to add funds. And so in anyone in this group, if there's a particular fund you're really interested in, you can send that to Randall or myself and we can get it from the committee. Can't guarantee that we'll put it in the plan, but it will be reviewed. But I will tell you in our next meeting, I know the subject to target date bonuses will be on the table and whether or not to add those in 5-year increments, as you've probably seen in our previous ones. So I know that will be on the table for discussion for us.
And one thing too to keep in mind with that, Empower doesn't have anything to do with the funds that are chosen under the plan. Raymond James, the advisor, they're looking at that. They're working with the retirement committee, and they're determining, okay, we look at the performances of the funds, and if a fund isn't meeting certain benchmarks, that's when they might consider, look, we might want to move that fund out. And it's a process, but you would be notified. All kinds of stuff would be going on.
So based on these funds, currently my rate of return is 1%.
So currently,
But it's as of August 1st, yeah, that's the
Yeah, that's what August 1st, so it's only.
Yeah, it's, the plan didn't become active until the 1st of August. Right? So this plan will start its year.
Which, what percent of return in a month is that?
Yeah.
That's 12% on an annualized basis.
today might have been a good day. Today might have been a good day too.
Yes, that is right. It's August 1st. So you will not have any year data until we get
But that, remember that there's a difference between your personalized return. That's why I encourage you to go
Right.
really look at the fund, how they're performing. Look at what he's telling you at that performance tab, and you will see, oh, that fund in the last 3 years made a 12% average.
Right. So
That's great return.
exactly. So the funds aren't new. The funds didn't start August 1st. They've been around. So you're like he said, yours is.
Yeah.
That's good questions, though. Good question. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? And I went way over on time. Is there anything you you think would be?
Just to go and spend time, I'll tell you this, the plan committee has was mentioned, last year, for example, we got rid of an underperforming fund, because we want to pay more attention to the plan, perhaps most people in the room will, because we want to have good performing funds that are well recognized across the industry at the lowest cost, and give the highest value that we can for the participants. But again, this is an ever-evolving thing, so as revenue, we want to keep an eye on it on a regular basis. You guys provide good insight to us. You've got some ideas about either funds that we currently have that aren't performing well in your mind, or you see other funds available that we could look at bringing into the plan. We don't want to have too many funds, because then it just confuses everybody. We want to have ample funds in each of the asset classes to give you a good ability to spread your risk in your investment strategy. We don't want to have too many. It kind of works counter to what we're trying to do. And we're real happy with what we're coming out of the gate in terms of the 16 funds that we currently offer. But you got to go in there and get familiar with it, play with the information, play with some of that modeling so you can plan your retirement. Remember, this may not be your only source of income in your retirement years as you plan, and you can build that into your modeling. There's just a lot of things you can do with it. You can change your contribution levels at any time. And as a reminder, you do not do anything through Paylocity or through Crystal or myself or your boss or whatever. If you're going to change something in the 401k plan, you go to this site to do it. Okay, including your amount of money. If you're at zero now and you want to start contributing again, or you're contributing now, there's a period of time you want to knock it to zero for some financial reason, you'll have to do that inside, but we can't do that for you. Okay?
Yep.
And add one more other piece to that. You know, we as a 401k kind of independent board of trustees of this plan is we have a fiduciary responsibility to the participants in this plan, overseen by the Department of Labor. So decisions that we make, we feel as though it's the best interest of the plan. That's why we're looking at power and lowering the cost structure. We wanted a top decile plan in terms of overall cost. We delivered that in this plan with this set of funds. Top decile, top 10% of other 401k plans of our size. So that was the main driver of the change, and also some of the bells and whistles that power as well with one of the other drivers. But I just want to make sure that's clear. That's another reason why we don't have this as an open platform for day trading. The Department of Labor looks at that as a fiduciary mandate that we would allow employees to gamble on their retirement. So that's another reason why we picked the plan that we have, is that it has long years of service, record, positive returns. And I've been in plans before that allow day trading, and they cause you way too much stress when you're not retiring for 2 years to try.
And I think, and one thing I did not mention is many of you probably have never even heard of Empower, our kind of the mothership, our main company is Great West Retirement or Great West Financial. We don't do a lot of advertising, but we're the second largest provider in the country. We're only behind one other one, which is a big one that starts with an F. Okay, but we've been doing this for a long, long time. We have 24 of the states in the country where we do, just like Tennessee, we do the record keeping, administration, and education on their plans. Thousands of other small plans and larger plans of all different sizes. Okay, so we're not. This wasn't, as it was pointed out, it's not chosen lightly. This is what we do. This is our only thing that Empower does. We don't have other products. We don't have insurance products, car insurance, any of that fun stuff you get to see on TV. We just do 401k and retirement plans. Okay. Pardon?
What's the maximum?
Good question. So the question was, what's the maximum you can put into your 401k? So if you're under age 50, the IRS in 2018, you can put up to $18,500 a year into your 401k plan. And it doesn't have to be over the course of the year. You're thinking, well, I can afford to do that, but I can't. I didn't do that much early on, so I'm going to have to hit it hard the rest of the year. You can do that if you want to. That's if you're under 50. Under 50, $18,500. If you're over 50, the IRS says you can do an additional $6,000, so up to $24,500. So the limits are pretty high, which is great for those of us that can afford to put that kind of money away. But don't let that be a deterrent. You know, that's what I talked about early on, is get started. If you're not contributing now, if you're contributing 1-2%, try to boost that up as often as you can. We get stuck paying our bills, but you got to pay yourself first, because you don't want to be at the end of that line. And I think you mentioned you got a little bit of a late start over there. That's hard to recover from. It's doable, but it makes it that much harder. The younger you are and the earlier you get started and put in as much as you can, the better off you're going to be.
And on the 18.5 is not including the employer match.
Correct.
That's up your own expenses.
Correct.
No, it's still the same 10% at the first 6%. So remember, your rate of return, his model, by the way, one thing to just make you more hopeful, when he was modeling that rate of return early on in the presentation, that 8% for Chris and Sue. Remember, you're getting a 10% return on your first 6% without the first dollar being earned in the market. Right?
As I said another way, every dollar you put in, the market's making 0%. You didn't grow a single penny. You got 10% on your money for the store.
Every paycheck.
Well, it's both. So if you're one that goes up and down on your contributions every month, you'll make sure you get, if you did 20% one pay period and 0 the next, you'll make sure it averages out to the 10% over the life of your over year.
If you got to stay, if you got money going in, you're letting it ride. You'll see them pay lots on your self-service pay stub, that 401k contribution that's hit that paycheck from South College. You'll see it in there. Always look at that. It's traceable to every paycheck. You'll see that contribution.
What was the question? I didn't hear. Sorry.
You can roll money into another okay, but yes, can you make contributions outside of the school?
Oh, no. Unfortunately, no. The contributions to these plans have to be done through payroll deduction.
Now,
But
what
as
you can't do is put it in a personal IRA and
Right.
roll that IRA.
right, you could do that. And in fact, you did mention the fact that if you have other 401ks out there, an old 401k, at this wherever it's just kind of sitting there, you're not paying attention to it, you can roll that money over into this plan with no tax consequences. In other words, you're just moving it from one employer plan into a new employer's plan. If you want to do that, I actually have a form. You can put your name on it, and I can have someone contact you if you're interested in doing something like that. They're not going to harass you. It's just a matter of helping you get that process done if you want to.
I think it's important to note that 401k is different from pension. It's your money. So you can take it in or out into other plans at any point in time you choose. It's your plan. Whoever separated South College, it's your money. And take it with you, leave it here, whatever you like.
And
It's your money.
And that's true. And that's a good point too. And that you remember, it is your money. But 401k plans, as I said earlier, it's not a get rich quick. It's a long term thing. Slow and steady wins the race. And you got to think about, though, if you do have that other 401k out there, and maybe you've lived through this already, do whatever you can to try not to take that money, because they're going to sell you. You have access to those funds now because you don't work for this employer. Well, you do, but if you take it, one, you probably put it in pre-tax, like I talked about early, so you're going to pay taxes on it. And guess what? If you're under 59 and a half, the IRS is going to hit you with an additional 10% penalty. So try not to take that money. If you leave here, try to roll it from here to your new employer's plan, and just keep it growing and building for you throughout your career. Every time you take it out, when you change a job, you're taking steps backwards. That's what you want to try to avoid. That hurts retirement. Okay, well, I've gone an hour, so any other questions or any other thoughts? Well, thank you all for joining us today, and I hope that you got something out of it. Remember, you cannot break the website. If you think you're not going to change anything, it's going to ask you a couple times, are you sure? So don't worry about playing out there, pushing buttons, doing whatever you want to do, but I do encourage you to get out there and play online. Let me stop this real quick.
Those you no longer like that. You have access.